Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really digging into something I think almost everyone in a leadership role has felt or done. It's that moment. Something goes wrong, a project deadline slips, a big mistake happens, and the first words out of the leader's mouth are often, okay, who dropped the ball?
That exact question. And it feels so natural, doesn't it? Like you need to find the source.
Exactly. But we're diving into some fascinating research today, insights really, that show how that single word, who, well, it pretty much kills accountability, dead in the water.
It really does. It stifles progress.
So our mission today is pretty clear. Understand why it's so damaging neurologically, culturally, and then give you, our listeners, a really practical, powerful alternative, a 3-question framework.
Right. A framework that flips the script.
Yeah.
Moves teams away from that instant defensiveness.
Yeah, that cover your backside mode.
And towards genuine ownership, real learning. And the paradox we're exploring, which is so key, is this. The more you hunt for who to blame, the less actual accountability you end up with. It seems counterintuitive, but it's true.
It's all about the language we use.
Sure.
Shifting those patterns.
Precisely. Moving from fear to finding fixes.
Okay, let's paint that picture. Because we've all been there, right? In that meeting room. The big project missed its launch date, maybe spectacularly. The leader walks in.
Yeah.
Maybe they're stressed, frustrated. You can feel the tension.
Unpalpable.
And they kick it off with, all right, team, who is responsible for this timeline slip? Who dropped the ball here?
And what happens instantly?
You see it immediately. Shoulders tense up. People avoid eye contact, look down at the table, anywhere else.
The mental shields go up, DEFCON 1.
Exactly. It's like a switch flips.
Yeah.
The whole room shifts from, okay, how do we solve this?
Yeah.
To, how do I make sure this isn't pinned on me? It's that threat response kicking in.
And this isn't just, people being difficult or overly sensitive. It's actual brain science. It's neurological.
Tell us about that.
Well, that who question, it hits the amygdala, the brain's threat detector, like an alarm bell, fight or flight kicks in. And here's the kicker. When that amygdala lights up, it basically hijacks the brain's resources. It pulls energy away from the prefrontal cortex.
Which is the part we need for thinking, right? For solving complex stuff.
Exactly. The rational problem-solving part of the brain effectively goes offline, or at least gets severely throttled. So by asking who, you literally make your team less capable of the clear systemic thinking you actually need to figure out what went wrong.
Wow. So you're trying to get answers, but the way you ask actually prevents you from getting the good answers. The real ones.
Precisely. That single question guarantees you won't get to the underlying system issues. You lose all that valuable insight that could stop it from happening again.
It's like shooting yourself in the foot, linguistically speaking.
It really is. Self-sabotage through language.
Okay, so this leads us to a really fundamental point about leadership, doesn't it? This idea that maybe leaders don't get the luxury of blaming.
That's the tough pill to swallow from this research, I think. It's a core insight. Leaders don't get to blame. They have to lead.
And that means accepting, fundamentally, that if something breaks on your watch, well, it's ultimately a leadership problem.
Yeah. Every single time.
Because think about it, if you immediately jump to who, you're kind of stepping away from your own role in it, aren't you?
Absolutely. You're abdicating responsibility.
Maybe you hired the wrong person, or the training wasn't good enough, or the process itself was flawed, or the culture encouraged cutting corners, or maybe expectations just weren't clear.
Exactly. There's always a leadership connection. The system, the culture, the clarity, it traces back. Asking who shifts the focus away from that. You stop leading, you start judging.
The research draws a really clear line here, contrasting blame and leadership.
Yeah, it's stark. Blame asks, whose fault is this? The whole focus is finding the guilty person.
And the result?
Defensiveness, people covering up mistakes, finger pointing. It's all about avoiding punishment. That's the judge role.
Okay. And leadership?
Leadership asks completely different questions, like, okay, what actually happened here? And crucially, how do we learn from this? The focus shifts to understanding the breakdown and preventing it next time.
And that produces?
Ownership, real learning, actual improvement. The energy is totally different. It's constructive, not destructive.
And you mentioned earlier there are like 3 specific negative things that happen the moment a leader asks who's responsible.
Yes. Let's recap those quickly because they're critical. First, as we said, the threat response activates. Brains shut down problem solving.
I got it.
Second, what people often call CYA mode engages. Cover your assets.
Right. Self-preservation.
All that mental energy that should be going into figuring out the root cause, it gets diverted. completely redirected into building a defense case, documenting how it wasn't their fault.
You see that in emails sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Carefully worded paragraphs designed to deflect blame.
Oh, absolutely. Crafting the perfect paper trail. And the third thing, possibly the most damaging,
Information disappears.
bingo. Information disappears. The real story, the messy details about the pressure people were under, the confusing instructions, the shortcuts everyone knew about but didn't mention, it all gets buried.
Because sharing that makes you vulnerable if the leader is acting like a judge.
Exactly. So people share selectively. They share what makes them look okay, not what the organization actually needs to hear to fix the problem.
So the end result isn't more accountability.
No, people just get better at not getting caught. They become careful, not accountable. It's a huge difference.
Okay, so if who is toxic, if it triggers all this negative stuff, we need an alternative. The solution seems to lie in changing the words we use, focusing on what and how.
That's exactly it. It's about deliberately shifting the language.
Yeah.
You elevate the conversation away from personal blame and towards fixing the system. And that really is what true accountability looks like in a high-performing team.
Can you give us some specific examples, like quick replacements?
Sure. So instead of that accusatory, who made this decision, try asking, what factors led to this decision? See the difference. It invites analysis, not defense.
Okay, I like that. What about who's responsible for this mess? That's a common one.
Instead of that, ask, what broke down in our process here? Focus on the process, not the person.
Process breakdown. Okay, another one.
How about instead of, who should have caught this error, ask, what could have helped us catch this earlier? It shifts from blame to prevention. It implies shared responsibility for the system.
It feels less personal, more collaborative almost immediately.
It is. It totally changes the dynamic. Which brings us to the core practical tool here, the 3-question framework. This is the sequence leaders need to follow when things go wrong.
Okay, let's break it down. Question 1.
Question 1 is, what happened? The focus here is purely on understanding, objective facts only, no interpretations, no blame, just what occurred.
Or like, walk me through the timeline step by step.
Exactly. Or what information did you have available when you made that call? The goal is to map out the system reality, the unclear expectations, the competing priorities, the resource constraints that led to the outcome. Often, what looks like one person's mistake is actually a symptom of a system issue.
Okay, I get that. Start with the facts, the objective reality.
Yeah.
But isn't there a danger there? If someone clearly messed up, just asking what happened might feel, I don't know, a bit soft, like you're letting them off easy.
That's a really common fear, and honestly, it's why so many leaders default back to who. They worry about seeming weak or avoiding confrontation.
Right.
But that's why question 2 is absolutely crucial. If you only ask question 1, yes, it could feel incomplete, but you don't stop there.
Okay, so what's question 2?
Question 2 is, how did we get here? Now we shift into systems thinking. This moves the focus from just the person to the conditions that allowed the problem to happen.
So connecting the what to the why.
Precisely. But critically, it still involves the person reflecting on their role within that system. You ask things like, what parts of our process or lack thereof allowed this breakdown? Or what organizational pressures or maybe conflicting goals contributed to this situation?
So the person still has to acknowledge their part, their choices.
Yes, but they do it within the context of the environment. It's not about them falling on their sword in isolation. It allows them to say, given these pressures and this unclear process, here's the decision I made and why, without feeling like they're solely to blame for everything. It's much safer, much more honest.
That makes a lot of sense. Understanding the landscape, not just the single action. Okay, so we understand what happened, we understand the system context, then what?
Then comes the accountability part, but focused forward. Question 3, what will we do differently? This is all about forward focus and commitment.
Right, action-oriented.
Exactly. The conversation anchors in the future. What are we going to change? So you ask, okay, based on this, what specific actions will we take as a team to prevent this from recurring?
The focus is on we, the team.
Often, yes, because it's usually system fix, but then crucially, you also need that supportive accountability piece directed at the individual involved, if appropriate.
How does that sound?
It sounds like partnership. You ask, what support do you need from me or from the team to make these changes stick? How can we help you succeed with this going forward?
So you're not just demanding change, you're offering help to make it happen. That transforms the leader from judge to partner.
Precisely. Partner in the solution, not just identifier of the problem.
So when leaders consistently use this framework, this what and how language, what happens to the culture? The research mentions something pretty remarkable.
It really is a significant shift. When people feel psychologically safe, when they trust that mistakes will be met with what happened and how do we learn, instead of who screwed up, something amazing happens. They start reporting problems early. Minor errors, potential issues, things they notice that aren't quite right. They bring them forward voluntarily instead of hiding them, hoping they'll go away or won't be noticed.
Because the fear is gone?
Exactly. And think about the impact of that. Problems get surfaced when they're small and manageable, not when they've blown up into massive crises.
And innovation, how does this affect that?
It fuels it, because innovation requires taking intelligent risks, trying things that might not work out. If people know that a failed experiment will lead to learning, not punishment, they're far more willing to try new things.
So you get more ownership, faster learning, more innovation, all by changing a few key questions.
Fundamentally, yes. You get more genuine accountability when you focus less on assigning blame and more on solving the underlying problem together.
Okay, but let's be real. Sometimes it is about individual performance, right? Sometimes someone consistently makes errors or isn't meeting expectations. How does this framework handle that? It can't just be about the system then.
That's a critical point. And yes, individual accountability absolutely matters. This framework doesn't negate that at all. The key difference is the sequence in the framing.
Sequence and framing, okay.
First, you still go through the process. What happened? How did the system contribute? You have to understand the context first. But then, yes, you absolutely address the individual's contribution and required changes.
So how does that conversation sound using this what and how language when it's focused on performance?
You maintain the focus on commitment and support, not judgment. So instead of a blaming tone like, why do you keep missing these details? You might say something like, okay, we've talked about the process issues that might be contributing here. Based on that and looking forward, what specifically will you commit to doing differently to ensure accuracy?
So it's still forward-looking, focused on their action.
Exactly. And then you immediately follow with the support question. And what support do you need from me or the team to be successful with that change? It holds them accountable for future behavior, but frames it within a supportive context. It's about development, not discipline, as the first step.
It feels like the leader's role fundamentally shifts depending on which question they ask first.
Absolutely. It determines your position, ask who, and you position yourself as the judge. People will perform for you, sure, but they'll also hide things from you and protect themselves from you. Versus asking what and how. Consistently do that and you become a partner. People bring problems to you. They learn with you. They take ownership naturally because the goal is clear. Improvement, learning, fixing the system, not punishment. Hashtag tag outro. So really, at the end of the day, when something goes wrong in your organization, it's not really about who failed. It's a sign that the system failed in some way, and that makes it a leadership problem. The real question isn't who dropped the ball. The real question is, what are you, the leader, going to do about the conditions that allowed the ball to be dropped in the first place?
That puts the onus right back on leadership to improve the environment. Okay, so that leads us perfectly into our challenge for you, the listener. This week, try this out. For the rest of this week, be mindful. Catch yourself just before that reflective who question comes out, the one that triggers the fear response.
Pause.
Just pause. And deliberately replace it with one of those three core questions. What happened? How do we get here? Or what will we do differently? Just try it. Observe the difference in the room and the response you get.
See how the energy changes.
Exactly. And here's a final thought to mull over, something to explore on your own. Imagine a culture where your team felt so safe that they started self-reporting every single minor error, every near miss, immediately. How much faster would your organization learn? How much more agile and innovative could you become? And how would that fundamentally change your job, your daily interactions as a leader?
Something powerful to consider.
Definitely. Think about that the next time you step into that post-mortem meeting.